Welcome to this week's edition of the Main Street TV Local Sports Break. Hi, I'm your host, Ralph Miranda. Our producer, Nathan Miranda, is behind the scenes getting this thing going. Today, we're going to visit with Coach Derek Hunt, as we do every week. We're going to talk about last week's game against Bradley Central at Bradley Central. A tough game for Maryville. They came away on the short side of a 21-13 score. It was 21-3 at half, but the Rebels fought back in the second half to make the score look a little bit more respectable. And we'll talk to Coach Hunt about that game, about his insight to the game, some of the things that they faced with the athletes that Bradley Central has. Injuries are always part of any season. The Rebels had a couple other injuries Friday night. One of them fairly serious or very serious. One of them not so sure, possibly be back this week against West. So we'll talk about that. And then, of course, West High School. You know, the West Rebels are the defending 5A state champions. They are the favorite to win it again this coming season or this season. And they defeated Maryville last year at West. They will come to Maryville this year. Still pretty much the same team they were last year. Obviously, they lost players to graduation, but they've got a couple strong running backs. Their quarterback is back, and their defensive secondary, most of them are back. And if you watched West at all last year, you know that secondary can cause you a lot of trouble if you want to try to throw the football. So all that and more this week on the Main Street TV Local Sports Break with Coach Derek Hunt. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to the Main Street TV Local Sports Break. Hi, I'm your host, Ralph Miranda. We're joined again by Coach Derek Hunt, the head football coach at Maryville High School. Derek, tough game last Friday night against Bradley Central. Very good football team. You guys kind of got behind early and made a nice effort in the second half to come back, but obviously it wasn't enough. So take us a little bit through that game, kind of how it went, and some of the things that that kind of led to that first half score.
Yeah, so obviously the biggest thing that led to that was the athletic ability and talent that Bradley Central has. You know,
Right.
Boo Carter is one of the best players that I've ever witnessed in person. He was very impressive on film. You kind of knew what you're getting into, and he answered the bell in the game. You know, he had a couple plays where we had all kinds of guys and opportunities to tackle him and just weren't able to. And that's just a credit to, and it's not like we weren't trying. You know, our kids were trying really hard, and he's just a better athlete, you know, and there's a reason he's committed to play football at the University of Tennessee. And so they also had a really good quarterback. He transferred from Ray County last year. A phenomenal athlete, made a lot of plays with his feet. They love to run him on first down against us to get a positive first play, drive starter type. He made a couple plays in the past game that I thought were super impressive, some of the throws he made. So a lot of it was us trying to adjust to the athleticism that Bradley presented. We had not seen anything like that this year. You know, also, we're playing a lot of new guys, even from the beginning of the year. I told our coaching staff, I feel like every week this week's the opener again because of the amount of injuries that we've had, and just kind of unfortunate injuries that we've had so far this year. And so we're hoping that our luck turns. Our kids are still working really hard. I was proud of the way that we battled in the second half. I think that a lot of times games like that end up getting pretty ugly. And our kids really fought hard, and defense played well in the second half and made some big stops. And, we made a couple plays on offense, but the biggest thing, was we got down in the red zone and had to kick field goals, or didn't come away with touchdowns. And that right there in a big game like that, you just can't do. You've got to score touchdowns and capitalize. And we did not do that. And obviously, all that said, we had a chance with, I think, under 3 minutes to go with the ball and a chance to tie down 8. And so I don't know, that's the type of game we really wanted. is
Right.
to have the ball in the fourth quarter with a chance to win the game. And we got that, and it just didn't go our way. But I was really proud of our kids. We've certainly got a long way to go and a lot to work on. But I don't think there's many teams that are going to play Bradley Central close this year.
Did they do anything that you felt like you weren't prepared for, or did they pretty much do what you had seen on film, and it was just a matter of athleticism and execution?
Yeah, they weren't. I mean, they had some wrinkles for sure. Their coaching staff does a great job, but it's not like they changed identities. They're just good at what they do, you know. And so, like I said, it's hard to, and anybody who's around football knows this. It's really hard to mimic speed and athleticism in practice, especially when you don't have anybody that's as fast as their fastest, you know, or their guys. And here's the reality is, you know, you can take the Boo Carter and their quarterback out of the equation. They still had, I think, 3 Division I signees around them, running back and a receiver, a DB, and they're super talented. And they've always been kind of rough and tough up front. You know, kids play really hard, that kind of thing. So they did a good job, and you know, they just executed.
How about on your side of the football? I mean, anything that I know you guys had a game plan going in offensively and defensively. In hindsight, is there anything maybe that you felt like you could have done better, or maybe you could have changed?
Yeah, you know, when you watch the tape, you always come away with stuff that, man, you know, I wish we'd have had this or that. You know, I think obviously when you get in the red zone, you know, and you don't come away with points, you're going to second guess what your red zone plan was. And, you know, the biggest thing for us, though, Ralph, was we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. You know, we got down there and had a holding call, and that backed us up out of the red zone. And so we were first and goal from the 20. Well, that's tough. And so we kicked a field goal, had to kick a field goal and missed it. So you come away with no points on that first drive. And you know, if we took that first drive down the field, you know, starting at our own 25, and so we go all the way down and get in the red zone or get it first and goal and come away with 0 points. If you go up 7-0 in that game, you just never know. You know, because it's not like we weren't so outmatched that we couldn't keep it close. We proved that we could keep it close in the second half, but you know how it is with momentum, and it's a variable factor. If we go up 7-0, you just never know. Also, the second time we're in the red zone, you know, we score a touchdown and it gets called back for a hold, you know, and it's just like, doggone, we just couldn't stay out of our own way down there. And it's super critical, you know, at that point in your drive to execute and do everything the right way. And we just didn't do it. So, you know, in hindsight, looking back, it's like, man, we've got to fix these issues, these penalties as best we can, you know, and a lot of it had to do with Bradley making a play, and, you know, we just got greedy and reached out and grabbed.
Yeah. No, I think you made an excellent point too. You know, fans watch a game and they see the athleticism of the team that you're playing. It's like, well, why can't they do something to stop that person? But as you said, you know, in practice, you've got your younger guys on the prep squad, if you will, right? They're trying to show you a look, and it's hard sometimes to match that, especially if a team has a Division I prospect. You know, if you had a Division I prospect, you wouldn't be on the prep squad, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's funny is you say that, and I heard in I guess late in the first half, I'd heard from our stands, we need to put somebody over number 6. So that's Boo Carter. That's the Tennessee commit. And I'm just laughing, thinking we've got 3 guys on him, and it hadn't mattered yet. So,
oh yeah, that's I love that kind of response from fans. But that's why most dads coach baseball, because they can see it and they think they know something about it, but they really don't know something about baseball. Of course, I'll get in trouble for saying that, but what the heck? I'm an old guy. Another exciting feature that we'll be unveiling on our Main Street TV local sports break is the question of the week. Each week, we'll be choosing one question submitted by you, our viewers, to ask Coach Hunt. To submit your questions, subscribe to Main Street TV on YouTube and comment on this or any other of our local Sports Break videos, or follow us on Facebook or Instagram and comment on any of our local Sports Break posts. Then tune in each week, Thursdays at 7 p.m. on our Main Street TV YouTube channel to catch the new episode and maybe hear your question asked on the air. All right, let's talk about your players. Hopefully everybody came through the game relatively healthy Friday night.
Yeah, we did. And unfortunately, Casey Cobble, our starting quarterback, broke his collarbone.
Oh, man.
So, he's going to be out, for an indefinite amount of time. Could be a year. It's hard to say until he gets checked up. And then Jonah Arms, who plays defensive line and tight end for us, he got banged up just has a leg contusion type injury. Hopefully his status is unknown. Hopefully he'll be able to play. But we've definitely had our run of bad luck to start the season with losing Gage Ledoux and quarterback and our right tackle, and so it's just like, man, it's you always feel good at the start of the season with your depth, and it seems like every year it's going to get tested. Now,
right.
We've played some good teams, and the road only gets tougher from here. Everybody's dealing with stuff like this. Nobody's going to feel sorry for Maryville, and we can't really harp on it. We just got to take who we've got, showing up at practice every day, and try to improve and get better and give ourselves a chance to win. Yeah,
no question about that. And obviously now with your quarterback going down, you're I don't want to call him your backup, but your co-quarterback, the guy that was in there, is going to see a lot more playing time. So this will be an important week for him, won't it?
Yeah, it's huge. Just obviously it's going to help getting all the first team reps in practice. We kind of felt like last week, they both played in the first two games. Last week, going in the Bradley game, we felt like Casey was going to be the starter and play the whole game, unless something happened. But I think he had earned that. It was nothing, and I told Graham, nothing that he didn't do. It's just Casey played really well, and we felt like had earned that job. And Graham's a great kid. Casey's a great kid, and they're each other's biggest fans, which is super special. When two kids really want something really bad. So we gave it some time and on Friday night experience before we made a decision. Didn't just do it in the preseason. And so unfortunate for Casey really is to win the job and then really only get to be the guy for a half, But we have a lot of confidence in Graham too. He jumped in the second half and made a couple of big plays, and I think that shows to his character, that it's not like he just given up or threw his hands in the air. That he was ready to go when his number was called, and so he'll have a lot of opportunity this week to get reps and improve and try to have a successful Friday night.
Talk about some of your players that you felt Friday night really did an outstanding job. I mean, I looked at the tape. I thought your number 44, and I don't know all the names. I've got your roster, but I don't know all the names off the top of my head like you do. But number 44 on defense, I thought he played a really good game. Very hard-nosed type player. Offense, you had some offensive linemen that I thought did really well. And of course, your back and quarterback played very well in the first. So give me some idea of the guys that you said, hey, they really did a good job Friday night.
Yeah, 44 is Jonah Arms. That's the one that's banged up a little bit.
Oh man.
Yeah, he is a good football player. We haven't had many like him that we feel like, hey, we can probably play him on both sides of the lines.
Right.
He's really good hands. He's strong, but he's actually got a really good first step. And when you're quick off the ball like that, you can make a lot of plays on the defensive line. He's our 12 personnel tight end as well. And so anytime we go heavy, which Friday night we were in a lot of it, he's a really good hand down blocker. And a lot of it has to do with the same thing. It's that first step off the ball. He gets into you and then he can block you. He can move you. So hopefully he's healthy and is able to continue to help us. Offensive line, I thought Alex Boyd, who played tackle for us, had a really good night. And he just continues to improve and get better. He's a junior, started last year for us as a sophomore, which not many sophomores do for us. We had two sophomores playing the other night a lot, Nash Stinnett and Ryan Henry. So they on the offensive line, I thought they had good nights as well. And so we're continuing to gel. There's a lot of moving pieces up front on both sides of the ball because of injury. But there's also a lot of opportunity for young guys. That's the bright side. There's a lot of opportunity for young guys to have a chance to come in and play on a Friday night. So, I think that bodes well for our future. But at the same time, we want to find ways to win now.
Right. Obviously, yeah. And I hate to hear that Jonah Arms is the guy that was number 44 that I was watching, and but he looks like the type of guy, and I've never met him, but just looking at him on film, the type of guy that if anybody knows the difference between pain and injury, it's him. And he'll definitely, if he can play at all, he's going to be out there playing, right?
Yep. And we have that conversation, every year, difference between, being hurt some or hurting, your arm hurting, and then being injured. If you're injured, you're out, and that's, it's understandable, and freak things do happen, unfortunately. But it's not the same as just you play football long enough, you're going to have some bruises and boo-boos and that kind of thing. So it's part of the game.
Yeah. It's like I'm sure you've seen the movie The Program, right? It's like the greatest line from that movie when the running back goes out and he goes, "Hey, Jefferson," he goes, "Are you hurt or are you injured?" He goes, "Well, what's the difference?" He goes, "Well, if you're hurt, you can still play. If you're injured, you can't."
That's right. That's exactly right.
All right, well let's move on to the upcoming game. Obviously, you guys, it doesn't, as you said, it does not get any easier. This week you host West High School, defending state champions, right? I have not seen them play this year except a few plays on film, but I did watch them a couple times last year. They had 3 running backs last year that they could move in and out of the game at any time. I know one of them probably graduated, but I'm sure the other 2 are still are back. They had a tight end that was a phenomenal blocker. They had a quarterback that could play very well. Obviously, I don't know how many of those guys in the mix from last year are back. You probably have a better idea. So tell me what you guys will be facing with West. Are they still the type of team they were last year, or have they maybe gone down a little bit due to graduations?
Yeah, I mean, they just like anybody in high school, they lost some really good players to graduation. Their running back being the first one that you mentioned.
Right.
They returned their quarterback. They returned quite a few defensive players that are really good. They're still super athletic in the secondary. West, I have a ton of respect for Coach Lamar Brown. I think he does a great job in getting his kids to play hard. And that's the first thing that jumps off on film is – and they're tough and they're physical and they're going to play hard. And I hope that's what people see when they turn on a Maryville tape. They may not be the most athletic, but they're tough and they're physical and they're going to play hard.
Right.
I love kind of Coach Brown's philosophy, which is, they do what they do.
Right.
They'll have some wrinkles from week to week, but their philosophy on both sides of the ball is not going to change a whole lot. They're just going to try to be better than you are at that.
Right.
Executing that game plan. And to me, that speaks, that's kind of who we are in a lot of ways, and we just want to execute at a really high level, and that's how they are. And so they are, in my opinion, a state contender again this year, probably the favorites. I would go as far as to say they're the favorites in 5A. Again, they beat a really, really good Bearden team. They've already beaten 2 teams in our region, even though they're a class below us. They've already beaten Farragut and Bearden. And those are 2 teams that will be at the top of our region, So so coming in undefeated, really impressive already. Played another very athletic Clinton Dragon team who has some Division I personnel at their skill positions, and so they do a great job. It is not going to be easy. Fortunately, we are back home, which I think helps us, but. We're going to have our hands full yet again, back-to-back weeks, trying to find a way to win a football game.
Yeah, I remember Coach Brown, Lamar. He used to be up at Morristown West with Don Woods way back when, and then I think he was the head coach up there at one time as well, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he's paid his dues. He's been around for a while, and he knows what he's doing. There's no question about that. Let's talk about their secondary. You mentioned the athleticism of their secondary, and last year that was one of the things that stood out to me. You and I had this talk, I think, in maybe our second show about, hey, if you could play man-to-man, you'd love to play man-to-man, right? They can play man-to-man. At least they could last year, and I'm sure they probably can some this year. So I know you guys aren't a team that throws it around a lot, but the fact that they can man up on some of your receivers, does that change maybe what you're thinking as you put together the game plan?
Yeah, well, and so I learned a valuable lesson in 2017, my first year as head coach. And
Right.
at the time, I was definitely trying to do too much myself,
Right.
not using delegation enough, but was coming up with the entire offensive game plan. And so I can't remember who we were playing that year. It might have been Dobbins Bennett or somebody. No, because it was somebody that could play man but didn't play a lot of man, and then they came out against us and played a lot of man. And
Yeah.
the valuable lesson that I learned was I didn't have enough man beaters in the playbook, and that you really need to have built in. You want banked reps in the preseason, so that way, should you have something come up in the game, your kids are familiar enough with it to say, all right, here's what we're going to do. Even though we didn't practice it a lot this week, we know we can still do it and execute it. And I learned that lesson that year, that you need to go into every game with man beaters,
Right.
stuff that you feel comfortable you can execute against man-to-man coverage.
Right.
Now, and there's going to be years you're better at that than others because of your Jimmies and Joes, and that's the way.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. But we feel good about Britton Barrett and Charlie Manu have been really good deep threats for us. They've been really good receivers for us so far this year in the first three games. Although it's early, I think we can separate no matter who it is and have a chance anyway. And so. We've not lost those. We've not gone into games without those man beaters, is what we call them. So ways to beat man coverage. And so yes, West can absolutely do it. They have done it. They've showed that on film that's part of their plan on defense. Certainly, which means that they can add extra defenders to the box and make it hard to run and block that many guys. Unless you're running the quarterback and trying to gain a fair advantage, it's really tough, and you've got to give it a shot, because when you can play a man-to-man, they're basically saying we trust our guy is not going to get beat, and if it's one guy on one guy and you can have it get behind them or make a move to gain separation, it can be a big play for the offense.
I noticed you completed a couple passes, one over the middle, really, really nice pass to your tight end last Friday night. And obviously in a situation like that, when you talk about man beaters, you can probably scheme where you can get your tight end on a favorable matchup. So he could be used in that strategy as well, correct?
Yeah, and preferably everybody's going to put a safety on a tight end, especially if he's a good player. And then offensively, you prefer to get him on a linebacker, and
correct.
And the worst of the five linebackers. So that's preferably what we want to do. And so, yeah, you're right. And that, you watch that. That's the fun part about watching, football on Sundays is it's people don't realize the chess game within the chess game that goes on, all emotions and alignments and formations just to get a guy lined up on, a defensive player that they feel like they can win a matchup on.
Right. All the fans know is, hey, they need to put somebody on number 6.
Exactly right. Yes.
All right. Let's wrap it up with kind of a question for our fans. When you have a holiday like Monday, and I know there's not many Monday holidays during the football season, but let's say school's out on break, whatever. How does that change your schedule, not only for your team, but also for the coaching staff?
Yeah. So like this, we had freshman JV games scheduled. So we try to find a team who's willing to move it up to the morning. And then we'll practice early. So like we started 7 a.m., started film on Monday morning and practiced right after that. And Mondays are a little bit lighter for us. They're shorter. It's more of an install, and we still do some live stuff for sure, but it's not like the work days like Tuesday and Wednesday are. And that way we can get to our freshman JV game. So we had a freshman game at 9 and a JV game at 10:30. So we were done and heading home by 12:30, 1 o'clock, which was super nice. We always, anytime we have a day like that, and we're playing football, we always try to allow time for our kids and our families to go enjoy the holiday. And so the last thing we want to do is have practice right in the middle of the day and you take up the whole day. And so it's just like another work day, but that's always fun, and I think just a mix up in the schedule is enjoyable for everybody involved.
Right, right. Excellent. Well, Derek, thanks for your time. We wish you the best of luck coming Friday night, and we'll get with you next week to wrap up that football game. And I know you guys will go out there and give it well over 100%. So I wish you the best.
For sure. Thank you so much, Ralph. Appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Derek. Appreciate you. Take care. Welcome back to the Main Street TV Local Sports Break. Hi, I'm your host, Ralph Miranda. I hope you enjoyed this week's show with Coach Derek Hunt. Coach Hunt talked to us about the Bradley Central game last week, a tough loss from Maryville that puts them at 0-1 in the region. Talked a little bit about some of the strategies in that game, some of the things that Maryville faced with the athletes that Bradley Central has. Then we talked a little bit about the players, some of the guys that stood out from Maryville last Friday night, some of them young guys, which bodes well for the future. And then, of course, we talked about injuries, and we talked about the West High School Rebels, who will come into town this Friday night to play Maryville. They defeated Maryville last year at West. They are the defending 5A state champions and also the favorite to win it again this year. They have a very, very talented football team, a good quarterback returning from last year, a secondary that can man you up on the line of scrimmage, and a couple running backs that shared the load last year. So hope you enjoyed this week's show. Stay with us next week as we get together with Coach Hunt again to review the West game and look forward ahead to the next football game for Maryville. For Nathan Miranda, our producer, for Coach Derek Hunt, I'm Ralph Miranda, and we'll see you next week on the Main Street TV Local Sports Break.